Okay, so we are in Webinar 5 of the IMLS trainings, and today's session is going to be focused around how we can build relationships and understanding relationships, both informal and formal, between organizations and communities, and then between our organization and other people in other organizations. I'm joined today by Cassandra, who's a case manager at the Long Island City Adult Learning Center.
Good afternoon, everyone.
And so we're excited to go through this, and this is the second of 3 workshops that focus around organizations and relationship development. Today we're going to focus on mainly content that comes out of Workshop 9, which is the establishment of the organization and understanding how organizations work, and then how we can build these relationships, understanding our own organizational structure. So we're looking at organizational structures and how they impact the communities around us. We're going to look and talk about a few ways that we can build relationships with organizations and communities, and then understand a few best practices when we're establishing these relationships with customers, and then with other organizations. So when we think about what an organization is, it is a principal building block of society. It is a collective that is oriented to pursue a specific goal, and they generally have very formalized social structures. So we think about our organization at Queens Library. We have a CEO, we have a board, we have several layers of management, and people in different coordination and supervisory roles. And these are established in order to help meet the goals and needs of our customers and help meet the goals of our organization. And so one of the phrases that is used when we think of an organization is it's birth to death, right? So it's cradle to grave. You're born in a hospital, and when you pass away, many people pass away in a hospital or in an organization. They're surrounded by either religious organizations, they might be in hospices. Throughout your life, you're interacting with organizations as well. And each one has a specific goal in mind that helps carry it to that next place. And so what we're looking for are understanding what services and programs that we offer so that we can ensure that we're meeting the goals and mission of the organization. And so when we think about these goals and missions, every organization has one. Every organization has something that provides what they either desire to be or what they desire to offer, what services they offer. For instance, if we think about our own, we talk about providing quality services, resources, and lifelong learning opportunities through various formats for informational, educational, cultural, and recreational needs. So
for instance, as a case manager in the Adult Learning Center, every time that I interact with a client, I make sure that I keep the missions of the library in mind with all of my interactions. So I make sure that when I am giving them the services, I'm giving them the type of services that I would want if I were the client there. I try my hardest to be up to date on whatever resources and opportunities that are available to the public. This way I can make sure that I'm giving my clients and our students and our library patrons the best services that I can, because as a representative of the library, that's my duty.
And so when you were thinking about the organization missions, we want to take into consideration how this informs our practices. When we think about what practices we have, we want to pay attention to who our stakeholders are. So for the library, we have many stakeholders, especially because we're a public organization. But these stakeholders, or these different interest groups, will consider staff members, right? So each and every one of us is a stakeholder. Any volunteers that work in the organization to help assist and help us to meet our organizational goals is a stakeholder. The elected officials who pass budgets, who work to advocate for the library are stakeholders. Any donors that provide financial support or even material support to the library is a stakeholder. Then all of our customers, every single one, depending on any characteristic, age, gender, race, ethnicity, religious affiliation, national origin, sexual orientation, any of these things that they're looking for and they're coming into the library with, they are stakeholders. And we think about how can we meet the needs of not just them as customers, but as stakeholders. So people come to the library seeking different resources, a large variety of resources. And when we think about what resources they need, we want to understand whether or not they know exactly what they need, which many times they do, but sometimes they come asking for something that might be it might be something that is not as explicit as we would like it to be. But some explicit resources that they might ask for might include childcare.
Right. So one example we can think of is I work in an adult learning center. So let's say there's a student that can't come to class because their child is at home. Their child probably can't go back to school because they need their medical is out of date, which happens very often. But the parent who happens to be a student of our center, for whatever reason, they're not aware of the services that they have. So I would then make it my duty to connect them with a healthcare navigator. That way they can enroll their child in health insurance, which will then allow them to go to the doctor and get them back in school. Getting the child back in school is obviously beneficial to their own education and also to their parents, because if their parents are in our program maybe learning English, them not being able to attend is not going to be conducive to.
Exactly. And so when we think about all of these situations, we'll think about like if they're looking for benefits information, any kind of legal assistance.
Right. So some of the things that I do as well is if they're interested in possibly like maybe enrolling in SNAP, and people still call it food stamps, but the new name is SNAP. They may not be sure how to go about doing that. And oftentimes I've had clients that have gone to New York City's Human Resources Administration office to enroll, and they haven't had the best experience. And so it's a complete turnoff to them. And sometimes they've been turned off so much that they would rather just figure it out on their own instead of getting benefits that they're entitled to. So one of the things that I can do is I can either sit with them on the computer and apply online and let them know the next steps needed as far as getting the interview and providing the proper documentation so that their application is not denied. Or I can refer them to a neighboring community-based organization who will actually do that same, but maybe a little more. They'll do the application for them, and they'll make sure that they do have the documents. They'll actually submit the documents to HRA, and they will sit and act as a representative when it comes time for the interview, which will then eliminate the interaction between the client and the Human Resource Administration. And a lot of clients that I've been working with, they have preferred this method, and they feel a little more confident when applying for such benefits. Some other resources that they may come to is like maybe job skills identification, resume help, and job search assistance. And so I do that in two different ways. Sometimes I will sit and work with them directly. And then also Queens Library's Job and Business Academy is great in helping as far as the mock interviews and looking over resumes and going over their job skills identification. So either or, as far as workforce assistance or workforce development, works wonderfully for our clients.
Thank you. And many of you each day help assist our customers looking for resources. So whether you're working at the computers and people are trying to work online, and whether this is applying for jobs, or whether this is looking up information about the school system or looking up information about other communities. And so it is important that we're able to support them in understanding this. And one of the key places to think about this is understanding our customers' motivation. So not just that they're coming into the library, but understanding why they're coming into the library. And by understanding why, we're better able usually to support them in finding the best resources for their needs. So for instance, if we as a library are looking to develop a relationship with the customer, we're going to have some customers that naturally come back to the library often, daily basis, or they come back weekly. They bring their families. They see the library as a principal resource in their lives. However, there might be other customers that it takes a little bit more work for them to come in. So this is where we look for building that relationship and understanding why they want to come to the library or need to come to the library. So some motivations, incorporating what Cassandra said, would be applying for jobs or looking for childcare. Maybe they want to come to a program at the library, but they're unable to because they can't find proper childcare. So being able to understand that customer's motivation and being able to help them find the appropriate resources will now free them up to attend more programming. At other times, it might be that the customer's motivated to come, but they might not understand some of the protocols and procedures that we have, or the customer might not feel very comfortable coming into a public serving organization such as the library if they're not accustomed to it, if they're not used to it. And that's something we'll touch upon in the next webinar, is building the capacity to work with customers, to help these customers interact with other organizations and understand different organizational norms. One way that is important for us to build relationships is connecting with community leaders, and this can be done through either event planning or even providing spaces for them to meet in our libraries. It is interesting to think about how when we are working with community leaders and being able to identify these issues, and Jesse commented that we do have customers that are unable to explain what they need. This is an excellent opportunity to meet with the community leaders, because many times if one customer comes in with that need, there's somebody else there that needs it as well. So when we're thinking about how to connect with these customers, this is done for some of us through the reference interview, which we've talked about before, and that most librarians conduct each day. But remember that each of us conduct some type of interview with our customers. And so it is important to be able to engage them through some questions. And if there is a language barrier, understanding which resources are available. Generally, customers do come in fairly literate in their own languages. So that's another way to support them. And so when we connect with these community leaders, we're looking for strategizing and coming up with ways to ensure that we're meeting these customers' needs, in that if there are any needs that the community has as a whole, that we can address them and that we can provide a space for them to be addressed. This might mean opening up some meeting rooms for people to have meetings. This might be having a space for maybe if there's a startup or if there's a small organization that needs to get established, that they can come and meet. They can come and meet in the library. And then event planning, being able to connect with each other through events, scheduling a community fair, coming together and providing a space such as a few tables set up outside or inside of the library where they can talk about what their community does and needs. There's a great example when you have the cultural arts festivals and you have cultural events that take place throughout the library system. These are opportunities not only to connect with the community leaders, but to expand the people who come into the library. Once again, aligning with our goals and mission to serve all of the customers. So it is a challenge, and it's not easy sometimes being able to pinpoint exactly what customers need, but it is a skill that is developed, and it's extremely important that we do that in order to meet our goals. So by doing this, we want to determine the type of relationship that needs to be established. This can be a formal relationship where we have contracts, such as for the IMLS grant that we have right now. we have a contract with New York University. And with them, they evaluate the program, they evaluate the assessments, and they look to see if this is a program that is successful and to see if Queens Library is establishing something that can be taken to other organizations. So this is a way that we've established a formal relationship. And sometimes you might have to establish informal relationships, which I can assume that many of you have established with other organizations.
Yes. So I have several informal relationships with various organizations. One, for example, is JASA, who is based out in Long Island, or they have an office in Long Island City, and they provide home health aid employment opportunities. However, they don't pay for the certification. And we met when one of the staff members came into the library and they wanted to speak to one of our classes about their programs. And after that, we developed that relationship and we continue to then exchange clients. So what we do is, because some of you may or may not know, Queens Library provides free home health aid certification, among other certifications. And so what one of the staff members would do is they would send me some of their employees who are in need of the certification, and they may not have any money to pay for it. He'll send them to me. I'll let them know about the upcoming information session. And in return, for the students that have completed the program with us, I then send them to him to then get employment. And so that's just one of the informal relationships that we do have. It's, we don't have any contracts, but it's just an understanding that we're helping each other's organizations the best that we can.
And having these informal or formal relationships with organizations can be a plus. They help to match our own goals. And generally, when you establish these, you want to make sure that your missions align with each other. Queens Library has a lot of programming, and in many ways, we're a very flexible institution in that if we find a need and we can find the resources to meet that need, we're pretty willing to do so. And if we can't find the resources, that's when these relationships really come into play, and that's when they're most important, is being able to understand that if we cannot provide that service or provide that service to the quality that is needed for meeting the customer's needs, then we as an organization, us as individuals in the organization, then want to look for these partnerships. So when you think about establishing these partnerships, many of them might start off informally. So you might know one or two people that are in the organization, such as managers or other workers, or you might even know the leadership in the organization, just on one-on-one, and you start brief conversations. So the main thing to do is always keep in contact with your formal relationships. This way, even though there might be a contract there, it makes it easier to plan, to work together, to develop a relationship that is more successful for both us, for the other organization, and for the customers that we serve.
Some of the ways that we do it in my location is that every 2 months we have what we call the Queens Community Partnership Network meeting, and that meets on the second Wednesday every 2 months. And it's various organizations. We just come together. We update each other on what's new, not only in our organization, but maybe in the field that we service. So one example would be like, one example could be like Workforce1. Every week they send out weekly updates on the different jobs that they're screening individuals for, and then helping them to apply and get the interviews needed to obtain the job. So we'll meet once every 2 months. We'll discuss the different things going on, and we just hand out whatever flyers we have. So when Queens Library host it, we discuss not only what's going on in the adult learner program, but in all the other departments in Queens Library. We do that. We make connections. We maintain these connections. And then we have also, once a year, I put together a community information fair. And so the next one coming up is in 2 weeks on November 17th, and where Workforce1 will actually be there doing what they do in their regular sites at the library. They'll be screening applicants for various jobs. They'll host a resume clinic where if you have a resume, you bring it in. If you don't, they'll sit and they'll work with you to discuss what you should and should not put on a resume. We'll also have other organizations there just to showcase the ways that they help the community, the different programs and services that they offer, and there's always going to be a contact person. That way, if you want to move forward with that organization for whatever program or service you're interested in, you'll always be able to reach out to them.
So it is important that we constantly communicate with our formal relationships. And as we continue developing these relationships, we want to think about what our needs are as an organization, what the needs are of the customers that come in, and then understanding that when we come in and we work with our customers, they might not understand all of the alternatives that are available to them. So as the people who hold information and understand how to use these resources, we want to make sure that we are helping to strengthen our customers, which we'll explore a lot more in the next workshop, where we can address the needs of our customers and help them be able to now address their own needs in certain ways. So we think about with these organizations, we want to think about how their rules and practices impact these customers. So this is something that being in contact with them, if they have a change, for instance, there are organizations that require that you are a lawful permanent resident or a citizen in order to take advantage of their services. There are other organizations that don't ask for that information. So understanding these relationships and understanding what organizational practices occur is important before you refer or even recommend a customer to go to these organizations. One example might be, and as Cassandra was mentioning, is there are certain benefits that you can receive. And you can receive it on basis of certain established residencies in the United States. There are certain establishments such as whether your children are citizens or if you are a citizen, if you've put money into a system, you might be able to get money out of it. There are many things that we might not all be familiar with, and we might not all be experts in, and that's okay. What we want to look for is understanding which contacts and which relationships we have that are going to effectively sustain and build them. So at this time, I just want to know if there are any questions or additional comments before we continue. Okay, so at this time, we're going to talk about one best practice that we have internally in Queen's Library.
As a case manager, sometimes people will come to me with various needs, and so what I do is our initial meeting, I explain to them, and I think there's a confusion because for one, they call me a social worker, which I am not, but I think with that understanding, they also believe that I can then advocate for them or attend meetings with them, and I have to make that clear from the beginning that as a library employee that I cannot do that. My job is to best lead and connect them to services that maybe they otherwise do not have access to or they're just unaware of, and I can provide them with like maybe some great questions to ask whatever organization that I am referring them to, so that they can guarantee that they get what they're going there for. So an average meeting with a client would be, we come in and they would discuss a problem to me. So let's say someone is they're back on their rent and they can't figure out how to pay their rent and they don't want to get evicted. I have a list of organizations that I keep near my desk that help with rental arrears, and that's all dependent on it's dependent on the person and their individual circumstances. So it's not a guarantee that everyone will get it. But what I do is I speak to them. I go over the qualifications, or the eligibility terms, I should say. And then what we'll sometimes do is, if they're a little hesitant, we'll make contact. So I'll give the organization a call, my contact person. I'll let them know the situation. Sometimes I'll let them speak to the client. After that, they're a little more comfortable. They know who they're going to meet with. They'll be able to put a face to the voice over the phone, which I'm not sure about anyone else. For me, it makes me feel 100% more comfortable, even if I'm not sure of how the outcome is going to be for the meeting. And so after that, after the client goes on their way, I make sure to give them a follow-up call, text, or email within the next maybe week or week and a half, just to see how things turned out. Sometimes it's successful, but it's not always. And so then I schedule more appointments, and I'm like, okay, well, this one didn't work. We'll go to the next organization, and we'll continue until I'm able to properly serve them with quality services that they deserve. Another thing could be, and if they're looking for childcare, I'll explain what used to be ACS childcare voucher. Now it's the Early Learn program. I explain to them the benefits and eligibility. A lot of the times, the students, they may be working, but they're only working maybe 15 hours a week. And for that particular program, you have to be working or volunteering for at least 20 hours a week, or you have to be enrolled in some sort of education program for some time. And I let them know the eligibility details. I'll print out the checklist on everything that they'll need to have with them. Although they'll get it when they get to the center, I like to prepare them that way. It's not only are they better prepared when they arrive, it can make the process a little more smoothly for them and for the staff member that is servicing them.